Hello and welcome everyone to the Maximizing Data to Fill Jobs and Upskill Workers panel. I'm Priyanka Sharma. I lead the US portfolio of World Education. I am joined today by Sharon Bonney, who's the CEO of COABE, Jonathan Finkelstein, who's the founder of Credly and the head of product and ecosystem workforce skills at Pearson, Anson Green, a senior leader and team member experience, Tyson Foods, and Lydia Logan, who's the vice president of global education and workforce development at IBM. Today, we have an esteemed group of panelists here who will share how companies are leaning into data and a skills-first approach for new jobs and also to create career ladders for their workers. We have a lot to cover today and so much to learn from their experiences and insights and their commitment to a skills-first approach. And as we get started, I would encourage all of you to add in your questions and comments in the Q&A chat that you see. And in our brief time together, we will certainly aim to address those during the 30 minutes. And then we will try our best to address them afterwards as well. So Jonathan, to get us started, I would love to know more about the activity that you're seeing from the employers that you work with around moving the needle on skills-based decision-making and why you think it's the way of the present and the future.
Thanks for the question and for inviting me to join the discussion. I think for as long as I can remember, people have been talking about the importance of skills in making decisions. But I think unlike other fields which have essentially digitized every part of a business process, I think skills is a really complex world, and it's taken some time to figure out how to do that with talent management. You think about the way sales leads are managed from marketing channels and leads all the way down to closing business, or the way supply chains operate and the kinds of systems that manage every little widget from the time it gets on a ship to the time it lands on a shelf and everything in between. We have that same problem around blind spots when it comes to understanding where talent is, who has what skills we have today, what skills we need. But I think in the last several years, and in particular in the present moment, we're finally starting to see all of the ingredients come into play, where businesses can get much better real-time insight into the skills that their people have, combined with the 8-ball of the future about where is and how is the world changing, and how does the skill shape of their org need to change. What we're doing at Pearson is bringing all of that together, and so we're working with employers, which represent the needs for talent, as well as with the world's largest network of learning providers, who have all aligned on a common language for thinking about skills. Down to an atomic level of the specific job tasks to be done for any given role, normalizing what job roles mean across different contexts, and then bringing real-time data in that follows the individual about what skills they actually have in real time. One thing that we see is that no matter how much a company invests in training and development, individuals are still an HR department of one. They're going to choose how they invest their time and their energy, and in many cases their own money, for their own professional development. And businesses need a real-time view about what skills people have. So an approach that honors the fact that individuals take their own paths and collect skills from lots of different places, and then allows those individuals to bring that data about themselves and their skills to their company is really where we see things coming together.
Thanks for that. And I really like the way you put the 8-ball of the future, and also how you're really thinking about skills as a language that translates across the board from employees into the, with employers and HR in between. Lydia, speaking of skills and common language, last year IBM unveiled its ambitious global commitment to provide about 30 million people around the world with new skills needed for the jobs of tomorrow by 2030. That's a ambitious and commendable commitment. Can you tell us more around how you're planning to achieve this goal, and how is it going?
Sure. So we made the commitment last year. We have partners with governments, with nonprofit organizations, and with training providers around the world. As a large multinational B2B company, We were not going to try to reach people in a B2C model. So we followed what we know works best and have identified, or at least a first round of partners globally who will help us deliver our Skills Build program, as well as other training opportunities from IBM. And that's going very well. We are reaching over, thousands of universities. We are in countries around the world. We have over 1,000 learning opportunities on Skills Build, and we're in up to 19 languages. We know that people, as we've already discussed, don't take a straight path from high school to college to work, even though that's the way most systems are designed. And so we really wanted to, again, honor that non-direct path that most people are taking and provide an opportunity for them to be able to upskill or reskill on their own and in a way that makes sense for them. We do that for IBMers once people are already employed at IBM through apprenticeships and other ways of coming into the company. We also, as IBMers, are required to do 40 hours of learning every year. Most of that learning is also connected to badges that signify what you've learned and how you might apply it. So this is something that we do both for employees of the company and through our CSR work externally. We think if it's right, if it's working for us, we can take what we learn, adjust it for the populations that we are most trying to serve. People have been traditionally left out of the tech sector: veterans, women, neurodivergent people, and others, underrepresented minorities in tech, economically disadvantaged people, and refugees. So we've been able to identify partners who work very well with those communities, and then in collaboration, give them access to our talent and the technology, primarily through our Skills Build program, but also through others.
That's great. And I really like how you're thinking about skills in two different ways. One is building on-ramps into the tech sector for historically marginalized workers, but then also really building not just career ladders for your employees, but almost lattices so that they're able to move back and forth between opportunities and divisions within Intel, I'm sure. Thank you so much for that. Anson, speaking about building career ladders and lattices, Tyson has been a trailblazer and so successful in a thriving public-private partnership, which I am personally very familiar with, that's focused around skill building through Upward Academy and Upward Pathways. And you're sort of at the edge of innovation there. So we would love to hear more from you about how that's going.
Absolutely. Let me tell a story here kind of about the evolution and the growth of an advanced manufacturing corporation that's in the business of food and protein with a really diverse workforce. And I said the context of the workforce, I think, is so incredible. We have over 127,000 frontline workers at Tyson. 60% of them are immigrants and refugees from 60 different countries, 50 different languages. About 10% have college degrees from other countries, and about 12% have never been to school. So that's the context that we do our work in when it comes to skilling and upskilling. As you referenced, our model is built on public-private partnerships. We work in local communities with colleges, with schools, with local workforce development boards, with immigrant-serving organizations, so that we can build a durable, lasting relationship for our plants across the country. Our footprint is very rural, so there's that other layer of rural to this diversity that gives us a real interesting context for upskilling and building skills models. I want to talk specifically about how we're taking that population, if you think about those skills and that embedded population, and staying on the edge of being this advanced manufacturing company, rolling out all kinds of digitalization and robotics and automation with that workforce, because that's our workforce. In a rural area, as many people that are watching know, your workforce is who's ever in the area, and there's not a big replacement workforce like there is in big cities. So we have to really build and upskill those workers. So our model is really about bringing our local education partners to the table, because they know the community, they know the partners, they know how to train and educate that community, and then working with our plants kind of on an individualized basis almost. I was in Arkansas just this week at 2 different plants to customize and tailor for the workforce. So you've got different populations, different languages in our plants. We go in and do a job profile and develop basically a skill proficiency profile based on the language assets as well as the known skill needs. So the known skill needs are sometimes the most static thing, and it's really the population context and the languages and skills of that population that we have to sit there and really customize around. So we take that data that we collect, and a lot of it's qualitative. We interview workers, we find out a lot about the context of implementation, and then we build skill models around that so that we have something that's somewhat standardized, but then customized for the unique locality. And what that gives us is, sometimes, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 kind of models that we can start to take to different communities that might have similar language groups, might have similar skill groups, might make the same product. And it kind of speeds to market our kind of ability, because we have these models that maybe only need, 10% customization. But the beginning is really a deep dive where we just roll up our sleeves, go in, interview workers, review the context. I was just watching robots for 2 days this week and how the workers were interacting, and trying to understand the system of implementation around that.
Thanks for that. And I think as you talk about the close partnership, and which has withstood the test of time around Upward Academy and Upward Pathways, the public side of that partnership are the adult education system,
Right.
the adult education programs and workforce and training partners there. And that's kind of where Sharon's work comes in as the leader of
Yep.
Coalition for for Adult Basic Education, COABE. So Sharon, if you can share with us what COABE does and how it strengthens the learn and work ecosystem for adult learner workers throughout this country.
I'd be glad to. So, in our role at the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, we provide leadership, professional development, advocacy, and communication. And we work with more than 2,300 local programs that provide direct services to the adult learners, many of which Lydia was talking about and Anson was talking about. Those are our adult learners that we're working closely with. 78% of them are people of color, 61% are single moms. They come into the local programs and they need services. So they need to either learn to speak the language, they need digital services, they need to learn how to upskill, they need to get their GED or equivalent, that sort of thing. And at the local program level, what we're thinking about is we really want to connect these adult learners with jobs or to help them get into community college. And we know that first they need those literacy services in order to move forward. So that's one slice of the pie that we work on. We provide professional development to help the teachers and administrators work with those adult learners. But then we also have a number of initiatives in place that I wanted to share about, which is really working with many of our national partners. So we work closely with Google. We have a number of initiatives in play with Google right now where we're helping the adult learners to get certificates, so that when they finish, they can have a job making between $50,000 to $83,000 annually. So really a bump up for them. And we have over 200 Google Scholars that are in play right now. So that's exciting. We also are on the IBM Skills Build. We have an adult learner channel there. And we have a number of adult learners from local programs that are working through various badges and credentials. Lydia, as you mentioned, there's over 11,000 badges and credentials that are available. And we're really excited about those because we feel that also really helps those adult learners. So we have that in play. And then we also have been working with Amazon on their upskilling initiative, which we feel is a great initiative, really helps adult learners of all abilities, difficulties and abilities, to be able to get a job at a family sustaining level with benefits. So we have that in play as well. And COABE also works on the Center of Excellence in Apprenticeships that's funded through the Department of Labor.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been really working on that piece as well with our national partners. I think what I'm trying to convey is that while we're at the local program level, we also work at the national level with multiple, we have over 100 partners. And we also work at the state level as well, working with state directors and state associations in all 50 states. So that's some of the work that we're doing, really student-centered. Our membership is free to students. Our conference registration is free to adult learners as well, always trying to keep that adult learner in focus. One last piece, Priyanka, I wanted to mention is that we also provide a lot of advocacy for the field. So we're considered the voice of adult education. We work with legislators. We just worked very closely with some legislators on the Adult Education Works Bill, which is basically WIOA being reauthorized. And so that's another component that COABE is really heavily involved in on behalf of the field.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about COABE is how you have also, there's so many initiatives to talk about in the limited time we have, but one of the ones that I think is critical to this conversation is centering learner worker voice, which you also do through your student leadership, student ambassadors, and other similar initiatives. So for those of you who are listening to this, you can find more information on the COABE website. Some really interesting work there. Jonathan, coming back to you, you mentioned the 8-ball of the future, which I'm going to use in other times too. But I would love to hear your perspective on future-proofing and how you are using data at Pearson. And when it comes to really thinking about training, education, and upskilling, and where do the skills come in that are sort of future safe, future-proof, and any learnings and advice you have for employers and other training partners on this call, they can take away from it, from using data and skills.
Sure. Whether I'm talking to a CHRO or a head of L&D, or you talk to family members or friends around the table during the upcoming holidays, one of the things we frequently hear is, what should I learn next, and will it be worth it? I think everybody wants to have the same level of confidence in the investments they make in their own learning and what skills to develop as we have when we open up our favorite map application and put in a destination. We know that it will give us the fastest route and 2 alternate routes. We know that once we go on our way, if traffic patterns change, we're going to be redirected. I don't think we have traditionally had that same level of confidence in the upskilling choices we make, whether it's for tens of thousands of people we employ or for ourselves as individuals. And so what we are doing is really trying to help increase that confidence level for every member of the labor market. And one of the ways that you do that is you need to be able to model the future in the same way that those traffic patterns and the directions you get for a 20-mile trip or a 2,000-mile trip are going to adapt in real time. And to do that, we bring some of the world's largest sources of data together in ways that I don't think have been brought together quite before. We've got in terms of the supply, we've got the world's largest network of verified talent with in-demand skills. And these come from over 3,000 learning and training and assessment providers who are recognizing skills in real time as people demonstrate them through credentialing and training and certification programs, including people going through skills build programs, which is a tremendous contributor to the ecosystem from IBM, and a great example about how once you are recognizing skills, you can create these pathways between and across work environments and learning environments. We also bring together really advanced economic modeling that looks at what kinds of skills are being augmented by technology, which kinds of skills are being replaced by technology, which human skills are trending. In fact, we just came out at Pearson with our new Skills Outlook report, which names the top 5 skills across the global labor market. And while it might be expected to find those top 5 skills to include technologies and IT skills, while those are obviously in demand, they're not the top 5. The top 5 skills are all human skills, and we've projected out several years and have identified that the top 5 skills in the next 5 years are also going to be human skills. What is unique about us as humans becomes even more important the more technology permeates the work that we do. So predictive analytics based on real-time data sets across contexts, markets, geographies, real-time data that follows individuals and follows their personal privacy and preferences into work environments. And then demand recognition from employers who are putting all that together and helping to benchmark and plan their strategic workforce goals from the high level within the C-suite right down to line managers and individuals trying to decide what to learn next.
Thank you. And Lydia, like talking about sort of working through that line from like C-suite all the way to hiring managers, one of the trends that I feel is very encouraging from an equity perspective, which sits at the core of world education in our work, is that IBM is no longer requiring 4-year degrees for many of the positions. And I think it's significant, but I would love to hear you talk about why this is so significant and what inspired IBM to lean into this skills first approach.
Sure. We have a comprehensive skills first approach at IBM. So we are executing that through CSR with the programs I mentioned before, Skills Build primarily, but many others. And Skills Build, we're reaching high school students and teachers, college students and professors, and adults. At the company, in our HR and talent acquisition pillar, we have apprenticeships, returnships for people who've been out. We've got about 30 apprenticeships, job roles that have been recognized by the Department of Labor. Many of those have been reviewed by the Council of ACE, the American Council on Education, and come aligned with course recommendations, course hour recommendations. We also, through HR, have eliminated the 4-year degree requirement for 50% of our U.S. jobs. So it's half of the job roles that are available in the U.S. no longer require a 4-year degree. That means we are doing a lot of work with hiring managers. How do you hire prioritizing skills? How do you realign the job posting, the review process, the review process of the job itself, of the job posting, of the applicants, right? It's everything from start to finish to make sure that we are not just removing the degree requirement, but still doing everything else the same as we did before we had removed the degree requirement. Because if you do that, you won't see any change. We've already seen a significant increase in diversity with women and underrepresented minorities in the applicant pool, which has resulted in increases in hiring from those same categories. We have found that people are at IBM really leaning into the credential, sort of the idea that credentials really matter. We're looking at ways to really amplify that inside the company so that, I'm not sure, a lot of people come to IBM and stay forever. I love it. I've only been there about 1.5 years, but there are 2 people on my team who've been there for over 25 years. People can come to IBM and move around the world, try different jobs. And that's what people want to do. You want to grow and stretch and evolve in your career. IBM is facilitating the ability to do that by implementing a really robust credential system for IBMers as well. So it allows you to earn those credentials as an IBMer and move around. And then the last two pieces, we have, through our government affairs team, a coalition around skills first policies with the US government and others that we advocate for. And then finally, we're working on the infrastructure that's required in order for these credentials to be transferred, verifiable, and secure. So it really is a company-wide effort. And I think the outward-facing kind of big picture are apprenticeships and the elimination of 4-year degrees for 50% of our US job postings.
That's wonderful to hear, and I think so encouraging. This is a trend I can definitely get behind. And talking about sort of the skills first approaches and really thinking through what, Jonathan, you also mentioned before around sort of the skills outlook and how human skills still are the most needed, at least in the top 5. As manufacturing processes become more and more technical, all jobs are more technical. Anson, if you can give us a brief response around how Tyson is tackling this issue as you continue to modernize your facilities and make, and upskill your workers, your current workers, and or train new ones, as technology makes those jobs definitely safer.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's something that, sometimes it's good to test our assumptions and our perceptions about this too. If you think about, I'll put it in the context for everyone that they'll understand. A lot of the automation that we see, automation's gotten so much easier to use and so much less expensive that it's proliferating, of course, in the industry. But what if I were to tell you to run one of these robots is less steps and less technology steps than to send an email with an attachment, and less literacy reading skills than making a complex password for your email. So, and then of course, as you mentioned, much safer and less strenuous. So it's about as strenuous as unloading your groceries. So if you think of it in those terms, the technology has kind of really broadened what we can do, and with what workers can access and benefit from using that technology. And sometimes I think it's our perceptions of, when you told me 3 months ago, when my boss told me I was going to start working with robotics, I was thinking about working with engineers and thinking with people that at least had a 2-year college degree or something. And I'm working with individuals that don't speak English. And so there's a perception piece. I think it's really important. The value of the safety and the fact that it provides our employers with an expanded workforce. As I mentioned, we're in a very rural areas in some places. So if we needed to get higher skilled workers, we might be troubled to find them. But because the technology has kind of broadened our abilities there in terms of bringing high tech down to low skilled individuals, it's not to say that it doesn't take skills, but they're trainable skills, and they're skills that our public adult education programs across the country that Sharon leads so well under COABE are really adaptable and ready to deliver. So I think there's a great perception piece for us to think of there, and public perception when it comes to high tech, and sometimes it might limit the horizons we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we wrap up, we have about 3 minutes left. I was wondering if we can end. I mean, this has been a very encouraging conversation, energizing conversation, as we move into a more equitable way of hiring workers, making sure that they are able to progress in their jobs from a skills-first approach rather than a credential-based approach, which has led to marginalization of workers and really made an impact on people's livable wage earning skills. I would love to end on this note of what is energizing you most. All of you were only able to talk about like the smallest sliver of the work that you're doing in this space. But if there's one thing you can choose to what's energizing you, that'd be great. Jonathan, I'll start with you first.
Well, I'm energized by conversations like this, so thank you for hosting it. I think what's exciting to me is that we actually have so many different groups able to talk to each other now. We have common data models. We have a common appreciation for the ability to impact people's lives, to create a more equitable workforce. That happens when you're speaking in the same language, when you can collaborate in new ways. We heard so many examples in this conversation around partnerships across types of groups that would have been interested in, but may not have had the means to figure out how to partner effectively with each other before. And I think the reason we're seeing that is that we have a common language for skills, and there's a lot of mission alignment across the workforce, and a recognition among employers, as we heard at IBM, where being a boomerang employee or having the ability to actually create and reinvent yourself even within a current work environment is possible. That's really powerful, and that comes from, I think, a common language and trust around skills.
Sharon, as the leader of COABE, you have a national campaign behind every employer. That's definitely something that energizes me as we talk about the way educational leaders talk with companies and leaders of business. But what else is energizing you?
Yes, I would say our diversity, equity, and inclusion work has been very exciting because for us that cuts across so many different barriers. We did run a DEI symposium in the summer and very well attended. What we saw was there's a real desire from the field of adult education to learn more about workforce equity, digital equity, racial equity and immigrant integration, prison literacy, many of the different focuses that we had during that symposium. So I think I'm most energized by that, but that's a hard question, Priyanka, because there's a lot of things that excite me about the work that we're doing.
We are technically over our time, but let's see if we can push this clock. Anson, one sentence. What's energizing you?
I think just the embrace of high tech with our workforce and the promise that brings to Tyson and to companies that are really venturing in this area.
That's great. Lydia, you have the last word.
I think, we all watch these reports that say the cost of higher ed is going up, which would lead you to believe that the economic opportunities are going down. But we know that through skilling, that's not the case. We are all working in ways that are creating opportunity for people to create a better life for themselves. And that's what energizes me.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being part of this panel. I'm definitely leaving energized from this panel, and we look forward to continuing this conversation online. And I think there's a hashtag for this event that we can continue to talk. So thanks everyone. And skills first is the way to go.
Thank you.